everybody. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hi. Hello. Hello, hi. Hi, 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 hi. This is Auntie Q. Auntie Q. ASMR. And Miss Petal. Always Miss Petal, or at least whenever we can, as often as possible. We'll have Miss Petal here with us, joining us for this video yet again. And in this video, I wanted to do a quick-ish video, one that won't be more than okay, rude. Did you? Apparently Petal doesn't think that I need my glasses, but today I wanted to be able to pre-record a couple of videos, ones that will be less than 30-ish minutes, so that they won't require any video editing, because I'm having problems once again with my video editor, because I've been using Shotcut, and there was a new version of Shotcut, so I went and downloaded it today as I sat down to my computer, my laptop, to try to edit together a video that I filmed with Petal like 2 nights ago, just a whisper ramble, and it was longer. It was my camera cuts me off after like 30 minutes, so it was too long. It got cut into 2 clips. All I needed to do was clip them together so that I could upload them, and now that I've uploaded or downloaded, the new version of Shotcut, it just straight up is not working at all whatsoever, period, amen. So, we're gonna have to hold off on that video for a bit, but I am going out of town this weekend, so I need to get a couple of things uploaded so that I can post some stuff while I'm gone, and then continue to have something to post, because I suspect it's gonna take me a bit to either figure out how to fix Shotcut or figure out what video editing software I'm actually going to invest in, because clearly the free software is not working. Shotcut, God bless whoever created it and wanted to do something good and make like free open source software, but it just does not work functionally or practically, and I'm pretty fed up with it at this point. Every time I have a video that requires any sort of editing, I can pretty much just cut out the next 2 days from my schedule, because I know that I'm going to be dealing with pretty much exclusively that and the hassle that comes with it. So hopefully I can switch to one that will actually freaking work, but we don't need to talk about that here today. I would like to do another Grimm's Fairy Tales storybook reading so that I can have that to upload. So we are going to pick up in that book right where we left off. I have it right here. Miss Petal, are you ready for story time? My Grimm's, the complete Grimm's Fairy Tales, like a really pretty book. I showed it to you guys in the last video, but I'll show it to you again. This very like blue, very like primary color shade of blue. Just when you look at blue, this is what you picture. Just a very blue, 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 with gold and silver reflective, like a filigree. This picture of a girl who I assume is a character in one of the stories. Yeah, nice book spine. The back of it also has some of the same like patterning and illustration, and then it has the gold on the edges of the pages, which I always just think is so cool. And then it has the ribbon as well. next story, the last one that I read to you, excuse me, the last one that I read to you was The Frog King, the first in this series of complete Grimm's fairy tales. Now, the one that I will be reading to you today is called The Giant and the Tailor. The Giant and the Tailor. So, without further ado, and so that this video does not become too long, we'll get into this one. Now, it does appear that this is a very short story. It continues only over to like the first quarter of the second page, and then the book or the story after that is just a bit longer. So I think that we will read both today. But let's get started first. Let's get started first with The Giant and the Tailor. Now, Petal, I'm just gonna move you a bit, girl, so that I am not bumping you. There we go. Okay. Perfect. Cool. So, like I said, without any further ado, here is The Giant and the Tailor. A certain tailor, who was great at boasting but ill at doing, took it into his head to go abroad for a while and look about the world. As soon as he could manage it, he left his workshop and wandered on his way, over hill and dale, sometimes hither, sometimes thither, but ever on and on. Once when he was out, he perceived in the distance a steep hill, and behind it a tower reaching to the clouds, which rose up out of a wild, dark forest. Thunder and lightning, cried the tailor, what is that? And he was strongly goaded by curiosity. He went boldly towards it. But what made the tailor open his eyes and mouth when he came near it was to see the tower had legs, and leapt in one bound over the steep hill, and was now standing as an all-powerful giant before him. What dost thou want here, thou tiny fly's leg? Cried the giant with a voice as if it were thundering on every side. The tailor whimpered, I want just to look about and see if I can earn a bit of bread for myself in this forest. If that is what thou art after, said the giant, thou mayst have a place with me. If it must be, why not? What wages shall I receive? Thou shalt hear what wages thou shalt have. Every 3 year, 165 days. And when it is leap year, 1 more into the bargain. Does thou suit thee? All right, replied the tailor, and thought in his own mind, a man must cut his coat according to his He had not put his goose in his pocket, so high into the air that he never was seen again, and this to the great delight of the giant. If the tailor has not fallen down again, he must be hovering about in the air. What? Did you guys get that? I didn't get that. But that's not really the point here, is it? Anyway, moving on to the next one. This is The Little Peasant. There was a certain village wherein no one lived but really rich peasants, and just one poor one, whom they called the Little Peasant. He had not even so much as a cow, and still less money to buy one, and yet he and his wife did so wish to have one. One day he said to her, "Hark you, I have thought. There is our gossip, the carpenter. He shall make us a wooden calf and paint it brown, so that it looks like any other, and in time it will certainly get big and be a cow." The woman also liked the idea, and their gossip the carpenter had cut and planed the calf and painted it as it ought to be, and made it with its head hanging down as if it were eating. Next morning, when the cows were being driven out, the little peasant caught the cowherd and said, "Look, I have a little calf here. It is still small and is not to be carried." The cowherd said, "All right," and took it in his arms and carried it to pasture and set it amongst the grass. The little calf always remained standing like one which was eating. The cowherd said, "It will soon run alone. Just look how it eats already." At night, he was going to drive the herd home again. He said to the calf, "If thou canst stand there and eat thy fill, thou canst also on thy forelegs said, "Thank heaven there aren't back again. There is such a storm, it looks as though the world were coming to an end." The miller saw the peasant lying on the straw and asked, "What is that fellow doing there?" "Ah," said the wife, "the poor knave came in the storm and rain begging for shelter. So I gave him a bit of bread and cheese and showed him where the straw is." The man said, "I have no objection, but be quick and get me something to eat." The woman said, "But I have nothing but bread and cheese." "I am contented with anything," replied the husband. "So far as I am concerned, bread and cheese will have to do," and looked at the peasant and said, "Come and eat some with me." The peasant did not require to be invited twice, but got up and ate. After this, the miller saw the skin in which the raven was, lying on the ground, and asked, "What hast thou there?" The peasant answered, "I have a soothsayer inside it." "Can he foretell anything to me?" The miller. "Why not?" answered the peasant. "But he only says 4 things, and the 5th he keeps to himself." The miller was curious and said, "Let him foretell something for me at once." Then the peasant pinched the raven's head, that he croaked and made a noise like krr krr. The miller said, "What did he say?" The peasant answered, "In the first place, he says that there's some wine hidden under the pillow." "Bless me," cried the miller, and went there and found the wine. "Now go on," said he. The peasant made the raven croak again. "In the second place, he says that there is some roast meat in the tilted stove." "Upon my word," cried the miller, went thither and found the roast meat. The peasant made the raven prophesy still more and said, "Thirdly, he says that there is some salad on the bed." "That would be a fine thing," cried the miller, and then went there and found the salad. At last the peasant pinched the raven once more till he croaked. "Fourthly, he says that there are some cakes under the bed." "That would be a fine thing," cried the miller, and looked there and found the cakes. And now the two sat down to the table together, but the miller's wife was frightened to death, and went to the bed and took all the keys with her. The miller would have liked much to know the 5th, but the little peasant said, "First, we will quickly eat the 4 things. The 5th is something bad." So they ate, and after they bargained how much the miller was to give for the 5th prophecy, until they agreed on $300. Then the peasant once more pinched the raven's head until he croaked loudly. The miller asked, "What did he say?" The peasant replied, "He says that the devil is hiding outside there in the cupboard in the entrance." The miller said, "The devil must go out," and opened the house door. Then the woman was forced to give up the keys, and the peasant unlocked the cupboard. The parson ran out as fast as he could, and the miller said, "It was true. I saw the black rascal with my own eyes." The peasant, however, made off the next morning by daybreak with the $100. At home, the small peasant gradually launched out. He built a beautiful house, and the peasant said, "The small peasant certainly has been home to the place where the golden snow falls, and people carry the gold home in shovels." When the small peasant was brought before the mayor and bidden away from the whence his wealth came, he answered, "I sold my cow's skin in town for $300. When the peasants heard that, they too wished to enjoy this great profit, ran home, killed all their cows, and stripped off their skins in order to sell them in the town to the greatest advantage. The mayor, however, said, "But my servant must go first." When she came to the merchant in this town, he did not give her more than $2 for a skin, and when the others came, he did not give them much, and said, "What can I do with all these skins?" Then the peasants were vexed that the small peasant should have thus overreached them, wanted to take vengeance on him, and accused him of this treachery before the mayor. The innocent little peasant was unanimously sentenced to death, and was to be rolled into the water in a barrel pierced full of holes. He was led forth, and a priest was brought, who was to say the mass for his soul. The others were obliged to retire in the distance, and when the peasant looked at the priest, he recognized the man who had been the miller's wife. He said to him, "I set you free from the cupboard, set me free from this barrel." At this same moment, up came with a flock of sheep the very shepherd who has the peasant known all along wishing to be the mayor, and so he cried with all his might, "No, I will not do it. If the whole world insists on it, I will not do it." The shepherd, hearing that, came up to him and asked, "What art thou about? What is it that thou will not do?" The peasant said, "They want to make me mayor if I will be put by myself in the barrel, but I will not do it." The shepherd said, "If nothing more than that is needful in order to be mayor, I will get into the barrel at once." The peasant said, "If thou wilt get in, thou wilt be mayor." The shepherd was willing and got in, and the peasant shut the top down on him. Then he looked to the shepherd's flock for himself, took it, and drove away. The parson went to the crowd and declared that the mass had been said. Then they came and rolled the barrel towards the water. When the barrel began to roll, the shepherd cried, "I am quite willing to be the mayor." They believed not otherwise than that it was the peasant who was saying this, and answered, "That is what we intend, but first thou shalt look about thee a little down there below." And they rolled the barrel into the water. After that the peasants went home, and as they were entering the village, a small peasant also came quietly in, driving a flock of sheep and looking quite contented. Then the peasants were astonished and said, "Peasant, from whence comest thou? Hast thou come out of the water?" "Yes, truly," replied the peasant. "I sank deep, deep down, until at the bottom. Last I got to the bottom. I pushed the bottom of the barrel out and crept out, and there were pretty meadows on which a number of lambs were feeding, and from thence I brought my flock away with me." Said the peasants, "Are there any more there?" "Oh yes," said he, "more than I could do anything with." Then the peasants made up their minds that they too would fetch some sheep for themselves, a flock apiece, but the mayor said, "I come first." So they went to the water together, and just there were these small fleecy clouds in the blue sky, which were called little lambs, and they were reflected in the water, whereupon the peasants cried, "We already see the sheep down below." The mayor pressed forward and said, "I will go down first and look about me, and if things promise well, I'll call you." So he jumped in. Splash went the water. He made sounds as if he were calling them, and the whole crowd plunged in after him as one man. Then the entire village was dead, and the small peasant, the sole heir, became a rich man. Happy ending, I guess. Everybody dies, and now this fool got some money. Like what? At least Petal seemed to enjoy it. Be sure to stay tuned for the next time we read from this book. The next two stories are The Golden Key and Sharing Joy and Oh! I'm She's happy. She's just a happy girl. She's just a happy girl. Anyway, we are at almost the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this video short so that I don't get cut off, so that I don't have to edit, so that I can actually upload this, so that you guys can have a video this weekend. And if you have any suggestions for other video editing software that I can try, please list them below. Aside from that, I'm gonna go now, guys. Petal and I are signing out. She says goodbye. She says that she hopes that you have sweet dreams.